Okay, we are live on Facebook. It's Crystal. I'm the founder of HeartStories, and I'm here with Margie Warrell from Singapore, the best-selling author of 5 books on courage and resiliency and bravery, and her most recent book called You've Got This that just launched March 1st, right?
March 30th, yes.
30th, yes, like just a couple of days ago. So the timing couldn't be better. I've been following Margie since the day I started my business. I don't even know how I ran across, I was searching some sort of article on women, and you were on, like, it was a recording of you on CNN giving some input, and I just was sitting there with my mouth on the floor at your wisdom and your just professionalism and everything, but with all wrapped up in this warm, vulnerable, like feminine package of a woman who was also so full of faith. And I was just in awe and have followed you ever since then. And so grateful for all of the work that you do in the world, and so glad just to have you here with us. So thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that. What a beautiful way. Of course, it's morning here in Singapore, and my alarm went off about 20 minutes ago. So I'm drinking my cup of tea, and that is a beautiful way to start my day. So thank you for honoring me like that.
Of course, it's true, and you deserve a beautiful way. After your past 2 weeks and what everyone's going through, you deserve a lot. So big hug, a big virtual hug to you.
I'll take it.
So I would love to start with the timing of your book launch, of course, being you were to have a book tour all over the world, and your book called You've Got This, and then finding out that your husband was diagnosed with coronavirus after a trip to New York. I've been following your stories, which I am just so incredibly grateful for. And also, I probably should have backed up. This is our very first episode of Sisters on Your Sofa. So the intent is just to have a warm, intimate place to have a conversation with other women that feel like a sister when you need that big sister wisdom and encouragement. And I'm just going to sit here with you in it moment. That's what this series is going to be about. So in that vein and that thought process, what you have been through over the last couple of weeks in the middle of what would have been your book launch, I just believe with all my heart that everything that you have spent your life learning, teaching, writing about, facilitating workshops, it has made you exactly who you needed to be in this very moment. It makes me want to cry. Like, I believe it so strong that you have shown up every day on these live posts that you've done. And even on the days when you were crying with the news, and on the days when you were feeling strong, like all of the undergirdment of all the underlayment of all the things that you've spent your life learning and teaching have come to this moment for you to lead us. Just teach us that we've got this.
Well, you make me want to cry now too, and it's only 7 o'clock in the morning. So thank you. It's been a tough few weeks, and it's been a tough couple of years, to be honest. And yeah, it's been a lot. And as you and I was saying before we even started, I lived in Capel. Actually, I had my 4th child. My little Texan, Matthew, was born in the Las Colinas Medical Center back in 2003, and have a lot of friends in that part of the world still from our time there. And then, but right now, yeah, my husband is still in hospital. I just got a message just literally as we're going live saying he didn't sleep well, and I have 3 children in the US, including one who's in New York right now, right in the heart of it, there in Manhattan. And so yeah, there's a lot going on. My parents are in Australia. I'm in Singapore. I have a son at the Singapore American School who's a senior at high school and has just been told, I mean, obviously his classes are now all online and unlikely to be doing any graduation. And I know he's one of many, and I know I'm one of many. I know this is my story, but I know we all have our own story right now. And so yeah, funny, I don't think I've ever cried. I felt myself teary in it, but you just brought that on. And
you in advance, and I have a box of tissues if I'm going to share it.
I don't have any near me, but I will say this. That in the midst of being brave and strong, and all the things that of having faith in ourselves, and having faith that God is at work in the middle of this mess. He is right here with us in the middle of this. We are still human, and we're still vulnerable. Yeah. And I've been doing daily Facebook posts over the last 2 weeks. Andrew was hospitalized 2 weeks ago, yesterday, on Friday the 20th. He's still in hospital. In Singapore, you aren't able to come out of hospital until you test negative. So he's still shedding the virus.
And for a minute while we're here about the whole, he still has the virus even though he's feeling better.
Yeah, and this is good. When I was doing one of my Facebook Live videos the other day, actually an old client of mine from Fort Worth, she said how she did not know that, and this is part of what they think might have been probably part of the problem in Italy. People, once they weren't really sick in hospital, were all sent home because they didn't have hospital beds for people who weren't really sick. Right. And my husband's no longer really sick, so we're really clear. He's not on oxygen. He's actually not needing hospital care. But you can still shed the virus for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And so that's why testing is even good after you've stopped being really sick, because you don't know when you actually can give your family a hug and not be spreading it.
Right. Yeah, that was, I'm sorry to interrupt your story, but I think that's important for everybody to hear while we're here.
Yeah, it is. And I've heard of it for several weeks. And I mean, he right now would be totally fine being at home in terms of his wellness.
Yes.
But the government in Singapore has a lot of really tight protocols. And, I did a CNN interview on that, after they've had SARS and what have you, they've just got very, very strong protocols, which they put in place back in January on temperature checks, going to the gym, and everything was much stronger like 2 months ago. But anyway, so I just think in the midst of all of this, we're all human, and it's allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. It's allowing ourselves to feel all that we're feeling as humans and feel it fully and sit with those emotions. And I actually believe our greatest courage and our strength and really that power we can access through our faith isn't in the absence of the moments of fear or the moments of anxiety or the moments of overwhelm. It's right there in the presence of those moments.
Right.
So, yes, my new book is about trusting ourselves, that you've got this and I've got this and we've got this, but that's not in the absence of still having moments of going, have I got this?
Yes. Yes. That was going to be one of my questions for you, is like, you have this book and I know you know it. And then, but do you feel like you've got it? Because you have been in through all of that. And I've heard you talk a lot about sitting with the feelings and not necessarily your words here, but just not discounting the feelings, that being in the feelings, but not letting the feelings control.
Well, and as humans, we emote before we reason.
Yeah.
You can feel jealous or mean or afraid before you're even thinking about, well, should I be jealous or should I have felt rejected?
Yeah.
I just felt rejected because I didn't get included in that, but I'm not even in that circle. So there's a reason I wasn't included, but we can still feel rejected or jealous or whatever. And so I think I got a hair in my eye. Sorry. Oh, I do. Anyway, I'm just going to, I can't get it out. So it's fine. This is really weird, but anyway.
Okay. I was worried it would be one of my fake eyelashes that I still since all my other things.
That'll teach me for crying. Something's got in there. But we're emotional creatures. And so when we feel a feeling, any emotion that you have often enough, if you have it often enough, becomes a mood. It's why someone who is constantly feeling angry a lot, they become like an angry person. Yes. Or someone who is always worrying and anxious, they become everything in their life is filtered through this lens of being anxious and worried. They're always waiting on bad things to happen. They're always terrified bad things will happen to their children, to their partner, to people who focus on things that make them sad. If you focus on what makes you sad often enough, you'll end up depressed and really sad person. By the same token, I think of my father who milked cows for 50 years, has almost, very, very little money, and always says he feels like the richest man in all the world because he's so grateful for everything he has. He's grateful for my mother. He's grateful that he has children who are healthy. He's grateful that he lives near the water, and he's so grateful. So he just lives in this world of absolute gratitude. Yeah. And so for all of us, when you feel the emotion, we've got to acknowledge right now what we're feeling, and the overwhelm and the anxiety and this, and people will have sadness and grief. Some businesses are closing. My son's going to miss out on his graduation. My daughter had a great internship lined up in New York over the summer. You know, that's, the sadness is real, and the grief is real, and the fear is real. But treat it like a cloud going across the sky. I see you. I notice you. I acknowledge you. I know you have something to teach me, but let it keep moving. And I think that's when we own our emotions and they don't own us. And right now we need not to be owned by our emotions, to name it. Great study by UCLA found, name it, feel it, breathe into it, and give it its space it's due, but just don't let it set up resonance.
So talk about that for a minute. What does that look like, to name it and feel it? I've heard you talk about your journaling practice and what are you trying to tell me? And what is when I'm feeling fear, and I think too, I was thinking as you were speaking about, you know, we want to stay informed. How many cases are in my city? What are the new rules? Can I go out? Like, so we're constantly putting this message in that is filled with fear in a lot of ways, uncertainty that seems to loom in fear, not the good kind of uncertainty.
Yeah.
So what does it look like to feel it and name it and then let it go by like the clouds? Like, what's a practical example?
Yeah, well, I've had plenty in recent days.
Yeah.
I'm doing it right live on air with you right now, which is unique for me, but these are the moments, these are the times. For me, it takes stopping, and anyone might want to do it just now, and just stopping, pausing from our doing. Don't distract yourself, and close your eyes. Take a couple of breaths, and my practice is breathe in faith and breathe out fear. Breathe in faith again. So just even that in, out, in. And notice where you're feeling anxiety or fear in your body. And it's because emotions sit in our body. Our issues are in our tissues. And so just notice it and put your hand there. When Andrew was diagnosed, when he's messaged me and said, I've tested positive, like I just had this overwhelm. And on my chest felt like a car had been parked on it. I just felt, and I, it's not that he's a healthy man, a fit, healthy guy, but I still just had this, I was really gripped. And so I just sat down and I just breathed. I put my hand on my chest and I just breathed in and out, and I noticed my breath, and I just had breathed in faith and breathed out fear. And I did that for a minute or two, and it didn't all go away, but it loosened its grip. And Jill Bolte-Taylor, who's a neuroanatomist, and she said even 90 seconds of doing that can really help to loosen that. Can also help to deactivate that fight, flight, freeze part of the brain that goes into this paralysis, this really frozen moment that a lot of people are having right now. And it does activate the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain that allows us to respond more constructively and more creatively. Right. And that's what I've been doing in the recent, because I obviously have lost all my income stream too, because I do so much speaking is where I earn a lot of money, help pay for those kids' school fees. And so for me in the first day or so, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've lost this income stream. And then as I stopped and breathed, connected to my faith, connected to the truth of who I am, to the power that lives in me and around me, I was like, what's my purpose here? My calling is to help people live and lead more bravely. If this is my time to do this, it's not about whether I'm going to earn money right now. Okay, let me start doing what I can do, whether or not I'm getting paid for it or not. So I've started to do virtual, with companies now. I'm getting asked to do virtual programs. Can I help build their resilience in employees? Can I help their leaders navigate this more bravely? Can I sharing with people online, doing my Facebook updates? And I think by moving away from our focus of what we're afraid will happen, which is always, our fear is always projecting worst case scenarios into the future. What will happen in, 6 months from now? And we have no idea. Really, we don't know what's happening 2 weeks from now. It brings us into the present. The breathing brings us into the present, connects us to the truth, which is to the faith, to what God wants us to know, gives us access to that wisdom, and actually expands our repertoire of responses. Instead of just going, oh, right now I need to go out and stock up on toilet paper and canned food. Right now I need to sit down and call my mother or write in my journal, or maybe there's someone I need to serve right now. Maybe this isn't all about me right now. And I think that just shifts and transforms our experience of the moment.
Oh, that's so good. It's so true. So true. I was totally thinking of the toilet paper example of how, because I think for me it's been so interesting that when we were on spring break, and when we got back, it was like a whole different world that we were to, just from Utah. But there was the whole toilet paper scandal. But then somewhere in that first week and a half, then all these little groups started emerging of people showing up to support one another and help each other, and let's band together to get supplies for folks who shouldn't leave. And like you could tell the thinking brain was starting to come on. It went from the fight or flight, I have to protect myself, I have to protect my family, to what can I do to serve others. Exactly. I saw
and that's what's going to carry us through this. Is the power. The fear is great, but the power of love, of human connection, is so much greater right now. And 2 weeks ago this morning, I did a Facebook Live and shared with people, Andrew's been hospitalized, please send prayers. And I just shared how I was feeling, and it was kind of raw. And he's on the road to recovery. So the prayers have been received, and, he's still testing positive, but he's on the road to recovery. But in the space of days, I moved to Singapore 2 years ago. I live here, but I wouldn't call it my home. I'm not really from Singapore. I travel a lot. I'm in the US a lot. I was planning to move back this year. I'd still love to, but let's see, because everything's up in the air right now. And so in the space of those few days, I had people starting to drop groceries at my door, and dropping off a latte from the coffee, at the door of my door, because I love my latte, and dropping and flowers and art supplies for my son, Ben, who spent his spring break with his mom in an apartment. And so I just was the recipient of so much love and goodwill, not just from friends and people I've met in the last couple of years, but from people who don't even know me but know of me. And like, how can I help? And it was just, I cried several times in the first few days of overwhelm of the goodness that was flowing into me, and prayers from friends in Texas and in Virginia, where I moved to after I lived in Texas, and across the US and the world and Australia. And so all of us right now, I think we all need to be so intentionally a source of goodness for others, because fear is contagious, but so too is love and compassion and generosity and hope and faith. But also, and a lesson for me, I grew up with my mother was a nun for 9 years before she left the convent and met my dad. And then had 7 kids. So I'm, Mother Margaret Mary, or my dad had kind of hoped I might have been. And my mum loves to serve others and is not very good at receiving. So hates to impose. And I think I learned that from her. When people ask, can they do things? My default response is, no, I'm fine. Right. Even when I'd like them to do something. And so I've really practiced courageous receiving. And that is saying, yes, thank you, I would love something. I love scented candles, and I didn't have any, and I was going to be in a space for 2 weeks, and someone said, can I get you anything? And I was like, I would love a scented candle. And 2 hours later, she's messaged me and said, I've left something at your door. It's like several scented candles with all of these groceries and a bottle of wine. And so for us to also be receiving, but if you are struggling, this is the time to let people know, I'm not having a good time of it today. I'm struggling. Maybe I'm struggling in my faith right now. Be truthful. I think this is also a time, not with everybody, but to reveal the truth of our lives to people. You saw the truth of my life 20 minutes ago. And because it's in really revealing the truth of what we're dealing with right now, that we build the deepest level of connection, that we experience that love in its truest, most beautiful form.
Yes. Oh, yes. Okay. So on that, I have to ask, with when you're sharing your truest, most vulnerable moments, like give us a word on how to handle that in others, because I know it's uncomfortable. We're not used to seeing, for instance, we're not used to seeing Margie Warrell cry on her Facebook Live. So if we're sitting on the couch virtually with you, what do you need from us in that moment? How do we show up as the receiver of that information with courage,
you know,
empathy?
the biggest gift we give is just our full presence, just our presence. And I think there's sometimes when there's grief as well, someone's lost something, there may be nothing we can say. You know, there's nothing that we can do to make it right. Like the moment is the moment, and the emotion is raw and it's real, and nothing's going to change it.
Right.
And so I think sometimes just being present and just being with people in that moment, I'm here with you. And I'm here for you, and I love you.
Yes.
And just bearing witness to it.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe there's something practical we can do, but maybe there's not. You know, maybe it's just. And I've obviously got friends in different places in different continents who can't do anything for me. But gee, I've appreciated the last couple of weeks, some friends that, you know, I've just got on and I've just had a cry, and they've all just been there, and I just know they're loving on me, and then we've had a laugh. I mean, then it's turned to laughter. 20 minutes later, we're laughing about all the funny memes that are flying around and the funny jokes and that.
Yes.
And so, but I think just being present for those, being with them, being for them, being present, and we're bearing witness to that, and giving them the space to be that. And I think sometimes some people are really uncomfortable with the rawness of emotions, and they can be, oh, don't cry.
Exactly. Yes.
Let them cry. The tears aren't bad. Tears are just us connecting to what we care about most. And sadness as an emotion is the emotion that connects us to what we care about most. So some people are going to feel sad at the moment, and that's okay. It's connecting you to what you care about most. And in the busyness of our lives, when we're flying along the surface doing 300 things in a day, too busy to chat, too busy. You know, I know I've spent more time talking to people, having an hour conversation than I'm usually too busy for that. You know, I got places to go and people to see. And so there's gifts in all of that. And I think for ourselves right now, as we're sort of moving through this moment, I think of Abraham Lincoln did in an address to the US Congress in 1862, in the midst of the dark, dark hours of the Civil War. And I don't want to butcher it, but it's something like this: the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate for the stormy present. And so as these times are anew, we must think anew, and we must act anew, and we will rise together. And I may have misquoted that a little, but it's the gist of it. And I share it because his words are powerful, and I have just such deep respect for Abraham Lincoln as a human being, and obviously as an extraordinary leader. But right now, our old ways of thinking, if we live on the surface at that superficial level, we're running around and we all want to look good, and we all want to be perceived and prove ourselves and impress and please and protect our image and all of that. Yes. If we're operating on that level, which is more superficial about how are we looking? Does everyone like how I'm looking? Am I looking? I mean, Lord knows how I'm looking. But when we're operating on that level, that's not sufficient to deal with what this moment is calling on us to rise to. Exactly. We have to dig deeper. And I think an oak grows deeper roots when the wind blows strong. And all of us right now need to grow deeper roots. Yes. And into a deeper level of thinking. Yes. And if we have a faith, that faith needs to go deeper. Yes. And we need to go deeper into our values of who do I choose to be as a human being in this moment in history, which is unprecedented in any of our lives, in the world. Who is it that I choose to be as a human being that one day we'll die? We are all going to die one day. And some people are very tragically going to die soon because of this terrible virus. But most of us who are healthy will not die. We will live. But who do we choose to be? You know, what are we bearing witness to in how we show up? What are the values that we want to anchor ourselves around? And I know for me, I've been feeling vulnerable, but I want to anchor myself on generosity and compassion and courage and optimism and hope, because this storm will pass. And we need to have faith that in the midst of all that's going on, it's not to whitewash it, but goodness can be found, and we can extract goodness, and we can become better as a people, as individuals, as a community that's coming together, that's kinder, that's taking care, it's better at looking after its vulnerable. And as a country, America, may America arise stronger, not just more prosperous and business bouncing back and everything, but may its people be better and kinder to each other, regardless of partisan. I think of just the level of bickering and partisanship, and may we be bigger than all of that, and may we be bigger than the moment.
Absolutely, it's so good. I heard you talking about, or no, it was an article you wrote about hope and the diary of Anne Frank and her experience and cultivating hope even in the darkest of times. And I think what you just said, it brings me so much hope. Seeing people finding the good in us and building on that during this time, for sure. I have one question. What is, in all of this, what has been, I feel like I've heard glimmers of this, but the best unexpected experience you've had? You've been stuck in your house, but with you quarantined with your son for 2 weeks. What is one thing you'll look back on and be extraordinarily grateful for?
I think I sort of touched on it already, just the amount of love and goodness in people. And just the amount of goodness there is in the world, just the amount of it. And I don't think, we kind of know it on an intellectual level, people can be good and kind, but to have really been the vessel, the recipient of that, was just beautiful. And it was actually on Thursday, my younger brother, Peter, it was the 10th anniversary of his passing away. Yeah. And I got on Facebook Messenger with my 6 siblings, and we were all just wanted to honor Peter just by all connecting and I was taken back to the time around his death. I was living in McLean, Virginia then, and 4 kids were all at a K-8 school back then, and he died, and it was exactly 2 years after my other brother, Frank, my big brother, had become a paraplegic in a motorbike accident. So they both happened on Good Friday, 2 years apart. Oh. And so it was pretty harrowing. And Peter had a long battle with schizophrenia, and he took his life. So it was, my oldest brother became a paraplegic. 2 years later, my youngest brother took his life after a long battle with schizophrenia. And it was shocking and sad. And I remember both of those incidents, actually, in both occasions, the rallying of goodness from the friends my kids are at a school called the Langley School, and in our community, because we were very entrenched in the school, and I was on the parent board, and we were just very much in this school, part of this school. That was a large part of our community, and just being lifted up by people. I just felt lifted up and carried along in the wake of Peter's death, and I felt a little bit like that in the last couple of weeks, a little bit like just lifted up and just kind of carried along. And I know that's in the midst of everybody else. Everybody's sharing this experience. I've experienced it on a personal level, but we're all in this storm together. And whether you know someone that's got COVID-19 or not, our businesses are affected, our lives are affected, our children are affected, our way of life is affected. And so I think that's been probably the most poignant thing, is just the immensity of goodness and love and generosity and compassion in the world. And I know I will leave this period more grateful to be a human and part of the human family and connected to it than maybe I was before, and probably more tuned into how I can be that for other people than maybe I was before in my busyness.
Yeah, true. But I think too, you get what you put out into the world, and you've been showing up with so much courage and goodness and love for others, and that's being reflected back to you. So it's beautiful. I want us to know, so where your book that just came out 4 days ago, where can we find it? Is Amazon the best place? Do we go to your website?
Yeah.
Best
Oh,
place?
yeah, I've got a copy.
Yeah,
I've got a
tell us
copy.
about the book real quick.
There it is. There you go. You've got this.
And it's subtitle, it's You've Got This.
The life-changing power of trusting yourself. Yeah. And yeah, it's on Amazon, absolutely. And it's on Kindle, and it's on audiobook for anyone. And I narrated it. I locked myself in a studio about 2 months ago, and for 4 days, and I narrated it all. So if you can understand my Australian accent, or you like my Australian accent, it's my accent. And you know, it's funny. The irony is, you know, in one way, it's the worst of times, because I know it's going to be in airport bookstores around the United States in May, June, July, and I supposedly, and I'm like, well, no one's in an airport. It's in airport bookstores in Australia right now. No one's in stores, right? They're all closed. No one's flying. And so part of me was like, it's the worst of times, because, you know, you invest a lot in a book relaunch coming out and all sorts of stuff. But yes, to your point, I think it was written my last 2 years. My family's been moved around by my husband's company. We were going to move back to the US. We sent my 2 kids ahead to boarding school in America, because we were moving back to Texas. He's in the oil industry. And then the company said, no, we want to move you to Singapore. So then we moved to Singapore, and the kids one of my youngest didn't settle. So he left. And then they said, oh, we want your husband to go back to Australia. And so our lives have been really disrupted a lot with his company, and it's been hard, really hard on us as a family, and we're weathering it through. And now this, obviously, on top of everything. Wow. And but I wrote the book to help myself be grounded in my own capacity to meet life's moments and life's challenges, and of course to help others build their confidence and overcome their doubts that hold them back in all aspects of life, you know, whether it's in going out and building a business, or pursuing a career you love, or having a life that, you know, is really meaningful to you. But I have to say, I have opened that book up numerous times in the last few weeks, and literally read, particularly the chapter on, you know, surrender resistance, you know, embrace the struggle and transform ourselves. That chapter I've looked at again and again, because I'm like, it is as it is. Life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. And how can I transform this moment into one that will help me grow in who I am and live a bigger, fuller life? And, you know, we don't grow when we're comfortable.
No.
And right now we're all decidedly uncomfortable, but man, what an incredible opportunity for us to grow, for you to grow, for me to grow, for us to grow. So I'm just sitting there going, God, work through me, work in me, and may you use this period, my tears, the pain, the anxiety, all of that.
Yes.
Use this for some higher good that I cannot yet see.
Yes, absolutely. That's surrender. That is all we can do right now.
Yeah.
And believe, like you said, that it's happening for you. It's so good. Thank you. Thank you so much. I was so grateful and just thrilled that you said yes to taking some time to chat with us. I know it's Saturday morning and you need to go for your swim while you still can. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it. We are having an event online. Of course, we do live events in real life, but we're doing our first online events, and it's called Joyful Closet Girls Night Out. So we're doing a closet clean out workshop.
Good on you. Well done.
Yeah, so on Thursday. So with a woman named Allison Lymphatis of Get Your Pretty On. So we look forward to seeing you guys there. Thank you so much, Margie, and have a wonderful Saturday. We'll see
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.